A tornado wiped out my home, so I brought my wife and kids to my parents' house. They told us, "No room for you inside." My brother's family laughed in our faces, so we walked away. A millionaire appeared and knelt before me. I was stunned, realizing it was him. On that fateful day, a tornado had ripped through the home my wife and I had spent 10 years building. In sheer despair, I called my parents, trembling, begging to stay with them. They agreed. But when I arrived with my wife and children, the door slammed shut. "Your brother's here," my mother declared coldly. "There's no room for your family." I stood frozen in the street, a man without a home. Just when all hope seemed lost, a luxury car pulled up. A young man stepped out. The homeless boy I'd once helped. Now a millionaire, he whispered. "It's my turn to repay you. My name is Coulter Webb, and I live in Wichita, Kansas, a place known for its endless fields and sudden, life-altering winds. I work as a security guard at a large supermarket on the edge of town. It's not a glamorous job, and the paycheck is just enough, but it keeps my small family fed. My wife, Alexis, is a part-time nurse, and we have 2 amazing kids. Emma, 8, with a smile as bright as the morning sun, and Randy, 5, a curious boy whose hands and feet are always getting into mischief. We lived in a modest, weathered house. The paint was peeling, and the roof tiles rattled during heavy rain, but it was ours. I'd poured my sweat into fixing it up, from the bookshelf in the living room to the wooden fence in the backyard. To me, it was more than just a house. It was our entire world, a home I was proud to have built with my own hands. It was a warm May afternoon. The air smelled of freshly cut grass. I just finished my shift at 4 o'clock, tired but relieved, eager to get home to my family. Still in my sweat-soaked security uniform, I drove our old pickup truck, the radio playing a familiar country song Alexis often hummed. On the way, I thought about our weekend plans. Fixing up the small backyard garden where Alexis wanted to plant daisies and vegetable patches. She said gardening helped her forget the stress of hospital shifts. For me, I just wanted to see her smile. The smile that had warmed my heart since I first met her 10 years ago. When I got home, Emma and Randy's laughter greeted me from the living room. Emma was trying to teach Randy how to play checkers, but he kept sneaking pieces, prompting her to snap, "Randy, don't cheat." I chuckled, hung my jacket on the hook, and walked into the kitchen. Alexis stood at the sink, her hair tied up, washing lunch dishes. She turned, flashing a gentle smile. "You're back. How was today?" Her voice was soft, as if it alone could wash away my fatigue. "Same old," I replied, wrapping my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. "Caught a kid trying to stuff a bag of chips down his pants at the store." Alexis giggled, turning to pinch my nose. "You're the supermarket superhero." We chatted about the garden, buying wood for a new fence, and Emma's request for a pet bunny. Life felt so simple. I thought I needed nothing more. But everything changed in an instant. I was on the sofa watching Randy play with Legos when the tornado siren wailed in the distance. The sound was sharp, piercing the air like a warning of death. I'd lived in Kansas my whole life, so the siren wasn't new. But this time it was different, louder, more urgent, as if the sky itself was screaming. I shot up, my heart pounding. "Alexis!" I called, my voice cracking. She rushed from the kitchen, eyes wide, hands still wet from dishwater. "Coulter, is it?" She started, but I cut her off. "Tornado. To the shelter now." I scooped Randy into my arms and grabbed Emma's hand. "Come on, kids. Hurry." Emma's eyes glistened with panic while Randy clung to my neck, trembling. "Daddy, what's happening?" he whimpered. I wanted to answer, to comfort them, but my throat tightened. I just gripped Emma's hand, pulling the family toward the back door to the storm shelter. The sky outside was no longer the gentle blue of the afternoon. It had turned a strange, inky green-black, as if someone had spilled ink across the heavens. The wind howled, whipping up dust and leaves. Somewhere glass shattered, the sound sharp as a scream. I opened the shelter's hatch, a small concrete bunker, and urged Alexis and the kids inside. "Get in quick," I shouted, trying to drown out the wind. Alexis held Randy, pulling Emma close, and I slammed the hatch shut, locking it tight. Inside the shelter, it was pitch black, lit only by a dim lantern in the corner. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of earth. Emma sobbed quietly, clinging to her mother, while Randy gripped me, his tiny hands shaking. "Daddy, I'm scared," he whispered. I stroked his head, forcing a reassuring smile. "It's okay, buddy. It's just a big wind. We're safe here." But inside I knew I was lying. The wind above wasn't just wind. It was a monster roaring and smashing, hungry to devour the world. We huddled in a corner, my arms around Alexis and the kids. Above, horrific sounds erupted, with snapping, glass shattering, roof tiles ripping away. Our house, the home I'd spent years building, was being torn apart. I heard a sickening crack, as if the house's bones were screaming in agony. Alexis gripped my hand, her nails digging into my skin, but I felt no pain, only fear. A cold, piercing fear like ice flooding my chest. I don't know how long it lasted, maybe minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. Then the wind quieted, the monster's roar fading, leaving an eerie silence. My heart still raced as I waited a moment longer before daring to open the hatch. "Stay here," I told Alexis, my voice hoarse. She nodded, her eyes red, holding the kids tightly. I climbed out, pushing open the hatch. The faint light of dusk spilled in, but the sight before me stopped me cold. Our house was gone. Only rubble remained. Splintered wood, broken bricks, shards of glass glinting in the fading light. The kitchen where Alexis washed dishes, the living room where the kids played checkers, the bedroom where we'd lain together dreaming of the future. All reduced to debris. Emma's doll lay alone among the bricks. A family photo rested in the dirt, its glass shattered. Our smiles a cruel reminder of what was lost. I returned to the shelter, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Alexis, come up." She climbed out, holding Randy with Emma trailing behind. As we stood amid the wreckage, no one spoke. Alexis covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Emma clung to her leg, and Randy looked at me, bewildered. "Daddy, where's our house?" he asked, his voice breaking. I knelt hugging him, but I had no answer. My heart felt crushed. Everything I built, everything I loved had been swept away in minutes. Standing in the ruins of our home, I felt the world collapse beneath me. But looking at Alexis and the kids, I knew I couldn't break. Not now. I took my wife's hand, squeezing it tightly, and said, my voice resolute, "We'll be okay. I promise." But that promise I wasn't sure I could keep. That night, our kind neighbor Susan let us stay with her. She lived alone in a small house a few blocks away, spared from the storm with only a few broken branches. Her cramped living room smelled faintly of old cookies, but to us it was a godsend. Alexis curled up with the kids on the sofa while I sat against the wall, eyes wide open in the dark. Randy's soft snores mixed with Emma's quiet sobs tightening my chest. I couldn't sleep, not because of the hard floor or the chills seeping through my clothes, but because my mind was flooded with one question. Where do we go tomorrow? Memories of our old house kept flashing, the dining table where we gathered each night, the garden where Alexis carefully planted flowers, the worn armchair where I read to the kids. All of it was now just rubble and memories. The next morning, weak sunlight filtered through Susan's window, but it couldn't lift the heaviness in my heart. Alexis sat up, her hair disheveled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. She tried to smile, but I knew she was hiding her fear. "What do we do, Coulter?" she whispered, her voice so soft I had to lean in to hear her. I wanted to answer, to say something certain, but my throat was dry. I could only hold her, letting her warmth keep me from drowning in despair. Then I thought of my parents. They lived in suburban Wichita, less than 30 minutes away. Their house was spacious, with a spare room upstairs and a large sofa in the living room where I'd slept during holidays. I rarely asked them for help, not out of pride, but because I knew I was never their priority. But now, with our world swept away by the tornado, I had no other choice. My hands trembled as I dialed their number. The phone rang, each tone stretching like a century, until my mother's calm voice answered. "Mom," I began, my voice faltering. "Our house, it's gone. The tornado destroyed everything. Alexis, the kids, and I, we have nothing left. Can we stay with you for a while?" I paused, waiting, my heart pounding. There was a long silence before she replied, her voice gentle. "Come home, Coulter. I'll get things ready." Her words were like a warm breeze through my icy chest. I turned to Alexis, squeezing her hand, and whispered, "We'll stay with my parents for a bit." Alexis's smile flickered, faint but hopeful. Emma looked up from her pillow, eyes sparkling. "Are we going to live with Grandma and Grandpa?" Randy chimed in, his voice small. "I liked Grandpa's room with the ship lamp." I nodded. "Yeah, we'll stay with them for a while," I said, forcing a smile. That morning, we gathered what little we had left. A few clothes, a blanket, and Emma's torn doll I'd salvaged from the wreckage. Everything fit in the trunk of our old pickup, the only thing unscathed by the storm. On the drive to my parents' house, the air in the truck was heavy, but there was a flicker of hope. Emma and Randy chattered about their grandparents, the upstairs room, and their old cat the kids loved to play with. Alexis held my hand, silent, but her eyes seemed to say, "It'll be okay." I squeezed her hand, trying to believe it. But when we pulled up to my parents' familiar house, a wave of unease hit me. The red-tiled roof, the maple trees in the yard, the gleaming windows. It was all the same, but something felt wrong. Laughter spilled from inside, not my parents' voices, but my younger brother Vincent's, along with his wife and their 2 kids. I stepped out, my heart heavy. Alexis followed, carrying Randy and holding Emma's hand. As we reached the door, my parents came out, their faces showing discomfort instead of the joy I'd hoped for. "Coulter," my mother said, her voice hesitant. "I'm so sorry, but Vincent and his family just came to visit. The house is full. You'll have to find somewhere else to stay for now." I froze, unable to believe my ears. Through the door I saw the spacious living room, the sofa empty. Vincent was inside, laughing carelessly with his wife, oblivious to our situation. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, we could sleep on the sofa, or just a corner of the living room. We don't need much, just a place to get through this." I was almost begging, my voice trembling, hoping for a shred of compassion. But she shook her head, her eyes avoiding mine. "Coulter, you know how it is. The house is crowded. Vincent and his family need space. I can't let the kids be cramped. Find somewhere else. It's just temporary." "But Mom," I stammered, fighting to stay calm, "we have nowhere else to go. Our house, it's gone." She looked at me, her expression pitying but firm. "I know, but Vincent got here first and his family's bigger. I can't kick them out. You understand, right?" My father stood behind her, silent, avoiding my gaze. My blood felt like it turned to ice. Alexis bowed her head, gripping Emma's shoulder, hiding her pain. Emma looked at me confused. "Daddy, don't Grandma and Grandpa want us?" Randy tugged at my shirt, his voice shaky. "I want to sleep in Grandpa's room." I knelt, hugging them, but words failed me. Memories of my childhood flooded back. Times when Vincent was favored, defended, while I was pushed aside, deemed unimportant. "When I broke my arm," Dad said, "You're a boy. A little pain's nothing." When I asked for book money, Mom said, "Vincent needs new basketball shoes. Wait your turn." Old wounds, long thought healed, bled again. I swallowed hard, stood, and forced my voice to stay calm. "I understand," I said, but I didn't understand at all. I only knew my own parents had rejected us when we had nowhere else to go. I turned, leading Alexis and the kids back to the truck. Alexis wiped her tears silently. Emma and Randy clung to my hands, their eyes tearing at my heart. As I started the engine, its roar couldn't drown out the cold void in my chest. The fragile hope I'd clung to was snuffed out, leaving a wound deeper than the tornado's destruction. I drove away from my parents' house, my eyes avoiding the rearview mirror where the familiar house faded into the distance. Alexis sat beside me, silent, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Emma and Randy were in the back, no longer chattering as they had on the way there. Randy clutched Emma's torn doll, staring out the window, while Emma leaned against her mother, her small shoulders trembling slightly. I wanted to speak, to comfort them, but words dissolved, leaving only a heavy silence. I just kept driving, no destination in mind, desperate to escape the sting of being rejected by my own flesh and blood. In the end, I took us to an emergency shelter set up by the Red Cross at the local high school, the only place I could think of after my parents turned us away. As we stepped into the school's gymnasium, a chaotic scene unfolded. Hundreds of people crowded the vast but stifling space, sprawled on thin air mattresses draped in worn blankets. The air was thick with the smell of damp mold, sweat, and canned food. Children's cries, the groans of the elderly in pain or exhaustion, and the ceaseless arguments of adults filled the room. I gripped Alexis's hand, guiding her and the kids through the crowd to find a small corner to settle in. We were given a few thin blankets and a mattress near a cold concrete wall. No partitions, no privacy, just the weary, desperate gazes of strangers. Alexis spread the blankets, trying to make a spot for Emma and Randy. "Sleep, kids," she whispered, her voice gentle but trembling. Emma shook her head, clutching her torn doll, eyes red. "It's too noisy, Mommy. I'm scared." Randy clung to me, his voice tiny. "Daddy, when can we go home?" I knelt, hugging him, but his question stabbed at my heart. "Soon," I said, though I had no idea when soon would be. The days in the shelter were a series of trials. Each morning we lined up for food: dry bread, canned beans, and a small bottle of water. Once, a burly man, face red with anger, lunged to snatch a can of beans from a woman's hands. "That's mine," he bellowed. I was nearby, and seeing her frightened eyes, I stepped in, keeping my voice calm. "Hey, easy. There's enough for everyone." He glared at me, eyes wild, but muttered something and walked off. Alexis pulled me back, whispering, "Don't get involved, Coulter. You don't need to play hero." The conflicts didn't stop there. One afternoon, Emma screamed when another kid grabbed her torn doll. The boy's parents jumped into a shouting match with Alexis, their voices drowning out Emma's cries. "He was just playing. Why make a big deal?" the mother yelled, pointing at Alexis's face. I rushed over, pulling Emma behind me, trying to defuse things. "It's just kids. Let's give her doll back. They tossed it to the ground with hostile glares that chilled me, then walked away. Emma picked it up, hugging it tightly, tears streaming down her face. That night, I caught someone rummaging through our bag, trying to steal our last bottle of water. I grabbed his wrist, my voice low and firm. Put it back. He flinched, mumbled an apology and slipped into the shadows. Alexis looked at me, her eyes worried. Coulter, you have to be careful. It's not safe here. I nodded, but inside I felt helpless. I thought I could protect my family, but in this chaos I felt like nothing. Each night, as Alexis and the kids fell into uneasy sleep, I sat awake keeping watch. The cries, arguments, and wind whistling through the gymnasium's cracks blended into a symphony of despair. In the darkness, old memories resurfaced, sharp and painful. I remembered childhood evenings when Mom made Vincent's favorite potato soup, while I got the leftovers. I recalled Vincent getting new basketball shoes while I wore torn ones to school. I remembered Dad's indifferent look when I shared my dream of becoming an engineer, saying, "Vincent's the one with the future." Those memories, long buried, resurfaced. My parents' rejection wasn't the first time they turned their backs on me, but it was the most painful. They chose Vincent, as always, leaving my family stranded when we needed them most. I looked at Alexis holding Emma and Randy close, her hair disheveled, her face gaunt, but still as beautiful as the day we met. I thought of my promise. We'll be okay. But in this shelter among strangers and chaos, I didn't know how to keep it. I could only hold my family, trying to shield them from the invisible storm still tearing at my heart. The days in the shelter stretched on endlessly. Each morning, I woke with an aching back from the thin air mattress, the cries of children and arguments of adults echoing in my head. Alexis tried to keep the kids' spirits up, telling them stories, singing lullabies she used to sing when Emma was a baby. I caught the mounting worry in her eyes, as if she wanted to ask, "What's next for us?" Emma grew quieter, clutching her torn doll, while Randy clung to me, asking questions I couldn't answer. One morning, after nearly a week in the crowded shelter, I decided to return to the ruins of our old house. I didn't know what I hoped to find. A keepsake, a piece of memory, or just a sense that I hadn't lost everything. Alexis wanted to come, but I told her to stay with the kids. "I'll be back soon," I said, kissing her forehead. She nodded, but her eyes seemed to hold me back, as if afraid I'd vanish into the rubble. I drove the old pickup to what used to be our home. The scene was still a nightmare. Splintered wood, shattered glass, and scattered belongings. I stepped through the debris, my boots sinking into dust and dirt. I found a photo frame our family pictured from Emma's 7th birthday. All four of us beaming in the summer sunlight. The glass was broken, but Alexis's smile still shone. Randy's eyes sparkled with mischief, and Emma wore her pink hair bow. I gripped the frame, my heart aching. Kneeling, I dug through the wreckage, hoping to salvage something more. As I sifted through the rubble, the hum of an engine sounded in the distance. I looked up to see a sleek black luxury car pull up to the curb. A young man stepped out, dressed in a sharp suit, his stride confident, but his eyes brimming with emotion. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, exuding a success I'd only seen on TV. I frowned, wondering what he was doing in this desolate place. He walked straight toward me, his gaze locked on mine as if he'd found something vital. "Coulter," he said, his voice low but warm. I nodded warily. "Who are you?" I asked, still clutching the photo frame like a shield. He smiled, a smile both unfamiliar and oddly familiar. "I'm Tiago," he said, pausing as if waiting for recognition. But I drew a blank. My mind, exhausted from days in the shelter, was empty. Seeing my silence, he continued, "You don't remember me, but 7 years ago you saved my life." I froze, trying to dig through my memories. Tiago stepped closer, his voice softening with emotion. "I was the homeless kid who collapsed at your gate." And then, like a flood, the memory from 7 years ago came rushing back, vivid as if it were yesterday. It was a rainy night, the wind howling through the window cracks. Alexis was by the crib singing to Emma, then just one. As was my routine, I grabbed an umbrella to check the gate and fence before bed. That's when I saw a small figure crumpled on the ground, trembling in the cold. The boy was scrawny, his hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes dim with fever but flickering with a desperate will to live. Without thinking, I brought him inside. Alexis, seeing the drenched, shivering boy, wrapped him in a blanket and made ginger tea while I dried him off and rummaged for fever medicine. In the days that followed, we let him sleep on our old sofa, feeding him simple but warm bowls of soup. He recovered slowly, always timid, his eyes wary, as if afraid of being a burden in our already cramped home. Then one morning the sofa was empty. On the pillow was a scribbled note. "Thank you for everything. I don't want to be a burden." My name is Tiago. One day, I'll come back to find you. Tiago, I muttered, my voice catching. You're the kid who stayed with us 7 years ago. Tiago looked at me, his eyes brimming with emotion. Yes, Coulter. When I heard about the tornado in Wichita, I immediately thought of you and Alexis. If it weren't for you two, I don't know how I would have survived. I might have died on that cold, rainy night. He paused, taking a deep breath. His eyes glistened with distant memories, both painful and warm. Today, I'm here to repay you. I stood there, the cold photo frame in my hands, struggling to process his words. Tiago continued, his voice steady but resolute, as if determined to make me understand his journey. After I left your house, I wandered for a while. But your kindness gave me hope, Coulter. It was like a small flame, enough to keep me from giving up. Then one day, a family in Topeka took me in. They gave me a home, sent me to school. I studied like crazy, knowing it was my only shot to escape my past. I graduated college with a finance degree and started a business. Now I own a tech company worth millions, with offices in New York and San Francisco. I'm no longer that homeless kid, but I never forgot the night you found me at your gate when I thought I'd die from cold and fever. Tiago's words were like a warm breeze seeping through the cracks in my heart. I looked at him, a young man in an expensive suit standing amid the ruins of my life. Yet his eyes were the same as that scrawny boy's, full of longing and gratitude. I didn't know what to say. I only felt a small spark of light in the darkness of recent days. My parents had turned their backs. But here was someone who was once a stranger. A boy I helped out of simple compassion, now standing before me, bringing a world I never expected. Tiago wasn't blood, but in that moment, he felt more like family than anyone who had ever abandoned me. Tiago stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder, his voice warm but resolute. Coulter, you didn't just save me from dying that night. You and Alexis gave me something bigger, faith that life was still worth living, that there were still good people in this world. Without you, I wouldn't be standing here today with a company, with anything. He paused, his eyes shimmering as if reliving those hard days. I've reached heights I never dreamed of, achieved everything I once longed for. But it all started with Alexis's warm soup, that blanket, and your words. It'll be okay, kid. Now it's my turn to help you. His words were like a warm stream flowing through the cracks in my heart, soothing the chill of recent days. I wanted to respond, to say he didn't need to do anything, that I'd only done what anyone would. I wasn't used to being helped. My whole life had been a series of carrying the load myself. Long night shifts at the supermarket, months of saving every penny to fix the roof, sleepless nights holding Alexis when she worried about the kids' school fees. I'd always told myself I had to be strong, the pillar for my family. But now, standing before Tiago, I felt small, like a man sinking in a storm with nothing to hold on to. Tiago seemed to read the hesitation in my eyes. He smiled, a gentle but determined smile, as if prepared for any objection. Coulter, I'm not just here to say thank you. I want to help you and your family get back on your feet after this storm. For starters, I have a luxury apartment in one of my properties right in downtown Wichita. It's vacant, fully furnished, bedrooms, kitchen, everything your family needs. I want you, Alexis, and the kids to move in today. No rent, no worries. Consider it your home. I opened my mouth to protest, to say we couldn't accept, that his kindness was too vast, too much for me to ever repay. But Tiago raised a hand, his voice firmer. There's more, he continued. I know you're waiting on insurance, but that could take months, even years. I'll provide financial support to get your family through this. New clothes for the kids, essentials, anything to make them feel safe. I stood frozen, my mind reeling as if caught in another tornado. A luxury apartment, financial support. It felt like a dream, the kind that sparked both hope and fear. I looked at Tiago, searching his eyes for any hint of pity, but found none, just sincerity, a determination to repay what he felt he owed. I thought of the shelter, where Alexis hid her tears to keep the kids from being scared, where Emma clung to her torn doll like it was all she had left, where Randy asked me every night, Daddy, when will we have a new home? I thought of my promise to them. We'll be okay. Tiago, I finally said, my voice trembling as if it took all my strength to speak. You don't have to do this. You don't owe me anything. Back then, I just wanted to help a kid who needed it. I didn't expect repayment. I looked down, clutching the photo frame, feeling my pride holding me back from accepting this help. Tiago shook his head, his smile tinged with sadness. You don't get it, Coulter. Your kindness wasn't just a bowl of soup or a blanket. It was why I didn't give up. Why I believed I could make something of myself. You gave me a new start. Now let me do the same for you. He gripped my shoulder tighter, his eyes piercing into mine. Let me help like you helped me. Not out of pity, but because I see you as family. The word family from Tiago's lips hit like a blade. Not to wound, but to cut through the walls I'd built around myself. Family. The thing I thought I'd lost when my parents turned their backs, when our home was swept away by the tornado. But now, standing before Tiago, I realized family wasn't just blood. It was the people who stood by you even when the world collapsed. I turned away, hiding the tears welling up. Inside, a battle raged between the pride of a man who'd always fended for himself and the exhaustion of a father and husband on the brink of despair. I thought of Alexis, Emma, and Randy enduring so much. And I thought of my promise, which I'd begun to fear I couldn't keep. Okay, I said, my voice trembling, almost a whisper. Thank you, Tiago. I don't know what to say. He smiled, patting my shoulder, his eyes brightening as if a weight had lifted. Don't thank me. This is just the first step. Come on. You need to get your family somewhere safer. They deserve better. And you, Coulter, you deserve a chance to start again. I nodded, feeling a heavy stone lift from my heart. I looked at Tiago, the boy I'd saved on a rainy night, now standing here bringing light to my darkest days. His offer wasn't just an apartment or money. It was a turning point, a chance to rebuild a home for Alexis and the kids. Not just from rubble, but from the kindness I'd once sown, never expecting it to bloom so brilliantly. We walked toward Tiago's sleek car, me still clutching the family photo, my heart heavy but flickering with hope. He opened the door, gesturing for me to get in. Let's go, Coulter, he said, his voice gentle but certain. Today's a new day. The car ride back to the shelter where Alexis and the kids waited felt heavy with anticipation. When Tiago parked in front of the gymnasium, I saw Alexis at the entrance, holding Randy in her arms, Emma standing beside her, clutching her torn doll. Alexis's eyes lit up with a mix of curiosity and concern. As I stepped out of the sleek luxury car, I knelt before the kids, forcing a smile. Kids, Daddy has something to tell you. I turned to Alexis, taking her hand, my voice trembling. Sweetheart, this is Tiago. He's the kid we helped 7 years ago. Now he wants to help us. Tiago stepped forward, smiling at Alexis. Alexis, do you remember me? The kid you made ginger tea for. Alexis froze. Then her face brightened, tears glistening. Tiago, is that really you? She whispered, hugging him like a long-lost relative. Emma and Randy looked at Tiago, curious but shy. I pulled them close, saying softly, Uncle Tiago is going to help us get a new home. A better place than this? Emma's eyes sparkled. Really, Daddy? A real house. Randy tugged my hand, his voice small. Will I have a room? I nodded, choking back emotion. Yes, buddy. Rooms for both of you. Tiago led us to a high-end apartment complex in downtown Wichita, where gleaming glass towers rose against a blue sky. When he opened the door to a 10th-floor apartment, I could hardly believe my eyes. The space was bright and spacious, with pristine white walls, polished wood floors, and large windows overlooking the city skyline. The living room had a plush leather sofa. The kitchen was modern with a stocked fridge and oven, and there were 3 bedrooms, each with soft beds and fresh linens. Emma and Randy ran inside, squealing with delight at the space. Emma jumped on a bed, hugging her torn doll, laughing. Daddy, this bed's so much comfier than the shelter. Randy pulled Tiago to a window, pointing. Uncle Tiago, I can see the whole city from here. Alexis stood beside me, hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Coulter, how did you find him? She whispered, her voice trembling. I recounted how Tiago found me amid the rubble, his journey from a homeless boy to a young millionaire. Alexis hugged me tightly, as if ensuring this wasn't a dream. You did the right thing, Coulter, she said, her voice choked. And now it's come back to us. Those first days in the new apartment felt like living in another world. After nights in the chaotic shelter filled with cries and arguments, the quiet of the apartment was like a healing balm. Alexis cooked our first dinner in the new kitchen, simple spaghetti with tomato sauce, but to the kids it was a feast. Emma and Randy sat around the dining table, giggling and sharing stories about what they wanted to do in their new home. Emma declared she'd paint a picture for the living room, while Randy insisted on getting a goldfish. I watched them, relief washing over me, though tinged with unease. This apartment, these meals, all of it was because of Tiago. I wasn't used to relying on others, and every glance around the luxurious space made me question if I deserved it. One evening after the kids were asleep, Alexis and I sat on the sofa, the city lights twinkling through the window. She held my hand, her eyes gentle. You're less tense, Coulter, she said. I don't see you staying up all night anymore. I smiled, but my heart was still heavy. I'm still worried, sweetheart. This is too much. Tiago's doing all this for us, but I feel like I don't deserve it. I'm just a security guard. I never imagined living somewhere like this. Alexis squeezed my hand, her voice firm. You're not just a security guard, Coulter. You're the man who saved Tiago, who gave him hope. You're the one who kept this family together when the world fell apart. You deserve this, and so do the kids. Her words silenced me. I thought of the shelter, guarding our last bottle of water, our blankets, to protect my family. I thought of Emma's frightened eyes, Randy's question. When will we have a new home? Now they had a place to play, to sleep soundly, and their smiles were brighter than ever. Tiago visited that weekend, bringing a fruit basket and toys for the kids. Emma and Randy eagerly thanked him, dragging him to their room to show off a castle they'd built with pillows. I watched, my heart warmed but still uneasy. When the kids ran off to play, I pulled Tiago to the balcony, struggling for words. Tiago, I started, hesitating. I don't know how to thank you. This apartment, everything. It's too much. I'm not used to getting help like this. Tiago looked at me, his eyes as sincere as the day we reunited. Coulter, you saved me. Not just my life but my soul. You showed me I had worth even when I was a homeless kid. Now it's my turn to do that for you. He paused, smiling. Let's call it even, okay? I laughed, the first real laugh in days, feeling a weight lift. Even it is, I said, clapping his shoulder. In that moment I realized Tiago hadn't just given us a place to stay or security. He'd given us hope. Hope that my family could rise again, that I could keep my promise to Alexis and the kids. The apartment slowly became a true home, even if temporary. Emma started painting colorful pictures, hanging them on the walls. Randy found a corner for his Legos, building spaceships he dreamed of. Alexis sang lullabies again, her voice soft and steady, no longer trembling as it had in the shelter. One morning as I was brewing coffee in the bright kitchen, Tiago appeared with a radiant smile, holding a stack of documents. Coulter, he said, his voice brimming with excitement. Have you thought about what's next? I mean, beyond waiting for insurance or going back to the security job. His question caught me off guard. Truthfully, I hadn't dared to think that far. The days in the shelter had me focused solely on surviving each moment. And now, in this apartment, I was still adjusting to the feeling of temporary safety. Not yet, I replied, hesitating. I'll probably go back to being a security guard at the supermarket. I don't have many options. Tiago looked at me, his gaze sharp but not judgmental. Coulter, you have more options than you think. I want you to work with me in my company, not as a security guard, but in a real role in finance and investment. I believe you can do it. His offer hit me like a gust of wind, both startling and disorienting. Finance? Investment? I repeated, almost laughing at how far-fetched it sounded. Tiago, I'm just a supermarket security guard. I never went to college, never touched things like market analysis or asset management. I'd mess it up. But Tiago shook his head, his eyes unwavering. Coulter, you don't need a degree to succeed. You have something no school can teach. Hard work, honesty, and the ability to read people. I've heard you talk about handling tough situations in the shelter, protecting your family, staying calm when everything was chaos. Those are real skills. I'll teach you everything from the basics. Just say you'll try. I looked at him, searching for a reason to say no, but his sincerity stopped me. I thought of Alexis, sleepless nights worrying about money, of Emma and Randy deserving a better future. All right, I said, my voice trembling. I'll try, but if I screw up, don't blame me. Tiago laughed, clapping my shoulder. You won't screw up, Coulter. I trust you like you trusted me. My first day at Tiago's company felt like being a fish flung onto dry land. The office was in a towering glass building in downtown Wichita, filled with sharply dressed people talking about numbers and charts I couldn't comprehend. Tiago set me up in a small corner with a modest role, data analysis assistant. A title that sounded grand, but mainly involved entering numbers and reading reports. Take it slow, Coulter, he said. Learn step by step. I'm here. Those first weeks were a struggle. Terms like return on investment or risk analysis made my head spin. But true to his word, Tiago patiently guided me. Every afternoon after work, he stayed late, explaining concepts in the simplest terms like teaching a child. Finance isn't magic, Coulter, he said. It's just managing money and opportunities. Slowly I started to get it. I learned to read market charts, analyze data for investment decisions. I discovered what Tiago called my practical intuition, a knack for spotting small details others missed, like how I used to catch shoplifters at the supermarket. During a meeting when the team debated investing in a startup, I hesitantly spoke up. They're advertising heavily, but their revenue numbers are shaky. I think we should be cautious. The room went quiet, Then Tiago nodded, his eyes gleaming. Good call, Coulter. Your instincts are spot on. After that, I was given more responsibilities, from analyzing reports to joining strategy meetings. For the first time, I felt like I was stepping into a new world. One of high-stakes meetings, big decisions, and numbers that could change lives. From a night shift security guard scraping by, I began to feel confident. I learned to wear a suit, though it felt awkward at first. I learned to talk to investors, even if my voice still trembled slightly. Tiago treated me not just as an employee but as a brother. He invited me to lunch, sharing stories of his early startup days, his fears, and his persistence. You can do this too, Coulter, he said. You just have to believe in yourself. The change didn't just affect me. It touched my family. Alexis noticed I came home smiling more, no longer weighed down by the tension of sleepless shelter nights. She felt secure enough to return to part-time nursing, knowing I had a new path. Emma and Randy transferred to a better school, thanks to Tiago's financial support. Emma raved about her new teacher and her art classes, while Randy told me about scoring his first goal on the school soccer team. Daddy, I'm going to be the best player, he declared, eyes shining. I hugged him, my heart swelling with a joy I hadn't felt since the tornado. Each night, sitting with Alexis on the sofa, I shared stories about work, what I was learning, how Tiago believed in me. You're changing, Coulter, she said, her hand in mine. I see you more confident, like you're finding a part of yourself you didn't know existed. I smiled, kissing her forehead. That's because of Tiago. Because of you and the kids. You're why I keep trying. Looking back, I realized this wasn't just about recovering from loss. It was a true turning point, a chance to not just survive, but to transform my life. From a security guard who kept his head down, I began dreaming of a bigger future. One where I could give Emma and Randy a life I never dared imagine. Tiago didn't just give me a job. He gave me a vision, a belief that I could achieve more than I ever thought possible. 4 years passed, and I climbed to a significant role in Tiago's finance company, managing major investment projects with a salary that allowed us to buy a spacious house in suburban Wichita. No longer a temporary refuge, our new home had a vibrant daisy garden lovingly tended by Alexis, a wide yard where Emma and Randy played, and a puppy named Sunny that the kids adored. My family thrived, happy, and for the first time I felt truly worthy of what we had. But one Saturday afternoon, as I was fixing the wooden fence in the backyard, the sound of a car engine came from the gate. I looked up, my heart stopping as I saw my parents step out of an old sedan, followed by my brother Vincent, his wife, and their 2 kids. For 4 years they had barely contacted me. Not a call, not a text since the day they refused to shelter my family after the tornado. I wiped the sweat from my brow, trying to stay calm, but old memories surged like a wave. Alexis, watering plants in the garden, paused, her eyes flickering with worry as she recognized them. Coulter, she whispered. What are they doing here? I took a deep breath and walked to the gate. Mom, Dad, Vincent, I said, my voice even masking my emotions. My mother smiled, but it was too sweet, too foreign compared to what I remembered. Coulter, my dear, she exclaimed, opening her arms for a hug. Her embrace felt cold, more ritual than affection. Look at you. So successful. This house is gorgeous. Truly something to be proud of. My father stood behind her, nodding, his smile forced. Good job, son, he said, his voice dry, as if spoken out of obligation. Vincent clapped my shoulder, his smile failing to hide a glint of envy in his eyes. You're a real surprise, Coulter, he said, his tone tinged with sarcasm. Who would have thought you'd make it this far? I invited them inside, not out of desire, but because I didn't want Emma and Randy to see me argue with them. The kids ran out, curious about their grandparents and Uncle Vincent, but they weren't as chatty as they'd been 4 years ago. They sensed the distance, even if they didn't fully understand it. Alexis brewed tea and set out cookies, but the living room felt heavy, like everyone was acting in a play no one wanted to watch. My mother started with seemingly harmless questions. What do you do at that company, Coulter? I hear it's a big one, right? Good pay. She smiled, but her eyes studied me as if calculating my worth. My father asked about the house, property prices, investments. A place like this must cost a fortune, huh? He said, scanning the living room where our family photo hung proudly on the wall. Vincent was more blatant. He sat with his legs crossed, fingers tapping the table, asking questions laced with curiosity but heavy with intent. Your company must have some sweet deals, right? Ever think about sharing investment opportunities with family? He grinned, but his eyes were cold, as if appraising me, my life. I mean, families should stick together, help each other out, right? He added, his tone suggestive. Alexis sat beside me, squeezing my hand under the table, urging me to stay calm. But I didn't need to get angry. I was too familiar with their ways. How they turned me away when I needed them most, how they chose Vincent because he got there first. I listened, but inside everything was clear. They weren't here because they missed me or wanted to reconnect. They came because they'd heard of my success, saw the new house, knew I worked for a big company. Their sweet words, "You make me so proud. Family should be closer," were a veneer for their calculations. Vincent especially couldn't hide his envy. When I briefly mentioned my work and the projects I managed, he clenched his fists, his lips tightening. "You got lucky, Coulter," he said, his voice bitter. "Who'd have thought a security guard could climb this high?" I wanted to laugh at his sarcasm, but I stayed silent. They didn't know about the nights I stayed up studying reports, the days I feared I wasn't good enough, the moments I questioned if I was on the right path. They didn't know the sweat, tears, and heart I poured into building this life. I smiled, polite but cold. "Thanks for visiting," I said, my voice even. "But we're fine. Alexis, Emma, Randy, and I. We've built our own life. We don't need anything more." My mother froze, her eyes flickering with unease. "Coulter, what do you mean? We're family. Families help each other." Vincent jumped in, his voice rising, almost angry. "You can't turn your back on family, man. I mean, we could work together, do business. You've got connections at that big company. Share a little. It won't cost you anything." I looked into his eyes, seeing the same envy, the same selfishness I'd known since childhood. He hadn't changed. Still the Vincent who wanted what I had but never shared when I was in need. I stood, keeping my smile polite but firm. "I value family," I said, my voice calm but resolute. "But I've learned family isn't just blood. It's the people who stand by you when you're down, not the ones who show up only when you're up." I paused, looking at my parents, at Vincent. "For years ago, when my family lost everything, you chose to turn away. Now I've rebuilt my life, and I don't need people who only come for what they can gain." My father lowered his head, silent, as if knowing he had no right to speak. My mother stammered, searching for words. "Coulter, you're misunderstanding. We just wanted." But I raised a hand to stop her. "Thanks for coming. We have things to do." I walked them to the door, watching as they climbed into their car. Vincent turned back, his eyes bitter, but I didn't waver. As their car disappeared, I returned inside to find Alexis at the door, her eyes full of pride. "You did the right thing, Coulter," she said, hugging me. Emma and Randy ran over, clinging to my legs, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Standing in the home I built with my sweat and Tiago's kindness, I realized something. Those who abandoned me in my darkest hour didn't deserve a place in my new life. Tiago, Alexis, the kids, they were my true family, the ones who held my hand when I fell and helped me rise. I didn't need hollow sweet words or blood ties based on calculations. I had everything I needed right here in this home. After that visit from my parents and Vincent, they kept trying to reconnect. My mother called, her voice sweet, asking about Emma and Randy, but I could hear the caution, as if she was waiting for a chance to slip in a question about my job or money. Vincent sent texts suggesting we meet to talk about family, but I knew he was fishing for details about my investment projects. Once my mother even sent a long letter, claiming she and my father regretted what happened, wanting to reconcile and start over. But their apology came too late, too hollow. I didn't respond, not out of anger, but because I'd learned a harsh lesson. Family only matters when built on sincerity, not selfishness or calculation. I chose to protect my small family. Alexis, Emma, Randy, and even Tiago. They were the ones who stood by me when the world collapsed. I remembered that day in the shelter, Emma's confused eyes asking, "Daddy, don't Grandma and Grandpa want us?" I recalled the nights I stayed awake guarding our last bottle of water. And I thought of Tiago, the boy I saved on a rainy night, now a friend, a brother, who gave me a chance to transform my life. Those memories reminded me that family isn't a title. It's action. It's the people who hold your hand through the storm. One spring afternoon, I stood outside our new home, watching Emma and Randy play in the yard. Emma, now 12, was teaching Randy how to blow soap bubbles, their laughter echoing through Alexis's daisy garden. Sunny, our puppy, darted around their feet, barking each time a bubble popped. Alexis stepped out from the kitchen, carrying a tray of lemonade, her smile as radiant as the sunlight. "What are you doing out here admiring the view?" she teased, setting the tray on the wooden table. I pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "I'm admiring our family," I said, my voice warm. "And I think I'm the luckiest man alive." My heart felt at peace, as if old wounds had finally healed. This house, with Emma's paintings on the walls, Randy's Lego models, and Alexis's garden, was more than a place to live. It was proof of what I'd overcome, of Tiago's kindness, and of the love my family held through every storm. I thought of my parents, of Vincent, of the times they turned away. But those memories no longer hurt. They were just part of the past. A lesson to cherish those who truly mattered. Tiago visited that weekend as usual, bringing a new chess set for Randy and watercolors for Emma. He'd become an integral part of our lives, not just a savior, but a true friend, a brother. When the kids ran inside to play with their gifts, I pulled Tiago to the yard, talking like long-lost kin. You know, I said, my voice low, I still think about the day you found me in the rubble. I never imagined a small act from years ago would lead to all this. Tiago smiled, his eyes bright. Coulter, it wasn't a small act. You saved me not just from the cold but from despair. You showed me kindness was real, and I'm just trying to live up to that. You, Alexis, the kids, you're my family, blood or not. His words touched my heart, affirming that family isn't those who birth you, but those who stand by you, even when the sky falls. I looked around our home, hearing Emma and Randy's laughter, feeling Alexis's warmth beside me, and seeing Tiago, the man who turned my life from ashes to a radiant home. I realized a clear truth. Family isn't about titles like parent or sibling. It's about actions and compassion. The tornado 4 years ago took our house, but it couldn't take my dignity or the true love I found in Alexis, the kids, and Tiago. The most precious things, kindness, resilience, and love, no storm could ever sweep away. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider liking this video, subscribing for more true stories, and hitting the notification bell. Your support helps us share these hidden truths and connect through shared human experience. Until next time, stay curious,